Welcome to this episode of YouTube, where colder weather has increased the dynamics around here, and I apologize for the long delay since Aiden's surgery. I think was the last update I had. Things are going quite well here, and did have a couple of questions about our cover hay use, and we do use cover hay instead of straw. It's a little bit softer and a little less issues with weeds and things, so we do provide that whenever it snows. And notice here Grizzer used his back right leg to support himself when he did that RLU, and that is an important thing to note. Grizzer's doing great. You're probably seeing a lot of Grizzer Luna interactions on the webcam, and he seems to be managing quite well with her. He had a little bit of a slip here about a month ago and affected his ACL a bit on that back right leg, but as you saw, he is able to weight bear and support himself when he does an RLU, and that's a good indication that it's doing okay. So these two again are ramping up a little bit. The colder weather, the snow, the time of the year, the hormones. Basically, this is the season when things become a little bit more active. And so Luna being 5, Grizzer going on 13, we're clearly seeing a little bit different in energy, but Grizzer is a willing participant, and I think to some extent it's keeping him a little bit younger. You know, he's up and he's moving around. He's not as stiff as if he would be if he were just kind of lying around a bit. And they do have that choice, obviously, to sometimes they lay in the cover hay, sometimes they don't. We've moderated temperatures in the 20s and 30s here, and Grizzer seems to get warm pretty easy. He's got a very full winter coat. We did deliver his Christmas presents, those of you who sent them to him, but we had a little bit of a challenge. This is why Luna and Grizzer now have a separate feeding protocol, is that Luna gets pretty food possessive about things, so we had to give her a distraction in order to give Grizzer his Christmas gift, but he did get it, and he went to the east side and he managed while we kept Luna busy here in the pack holding area. But it is a little bit of a challenge, and like I said, we're managing them differently than the exhibit pack because Luna has such food possession issues. And again, I can go into her history. I'm not sure if this is, you know, behavioral, metabolic in response to kind of her early history, but that's who she is. And so it's best if we don't have large quantity of things that she can possess or become aggressive in a threat display of food possession towards Grizzer. So we're manage them a little bit differently. It's working out great. Plus we can also regulate Luna's weight a little bit. I think I mentioned last time that she's lost some weight, and we're kind of happy about that. We have also been watching the surveillance camera on a regular basis, so in addition to us doing wolf care, we keep an eye on these guys and make sure Aiden's doing well. That's Aiden with that surgery and incision there, and you can see that full play bow. He has no problems with that front leg. And as the wind picks up, the wolves get a little bit nervous, and you see Aiden's ears go back in kind of an intimidated position, and almost immediately Bolts picks up on that and follows him. I would like to just share a little bit of video footage and re-emphasize some of the challenges that we're facing here this winter. So as you see, young adults have a lot of energy, certainly have a lot of dominance, and are what I consider to be a kind of significant factor of the winter of 2017-2018 is the maturing of Axel and Grayson. And so they each have their own individual personalities, their own individual characters. Axel being quite a bit more outgoing, Grayson being quite a bit more timid, and the relationships that they have are different. And so we know that Axel gets along quite well with Bolts, gets along pretty well with Denali, versus Grayson having a little bit of intimidation with Denali and getting along better with Aiden, whereas Axel being a little bit more antagonistic and certainly testing Aiden a little bit more. So the dynamics of wolves are always changing. The personalities of wolves, the rank, even the day can make a change. The temperature, and here we have very icy conditions. We had a lot of moisture, and then cold temperatures, and things were glare ice for a while within the exhibit. We've now since had snow, and so that's changed things a little bit, but really just want to kind of play out what we're watching. And so here, very typical, the Arctics having, you know, some social engagement with each other, Bolts trying to kind of get in the mix. And this is one of the reasons why we do 4-year rotations, is because as these young adults mature, it's important to have kind of a middle range wolf that kind of engages with them, and that's what Bolts' kind of role is. But you know, to try to be there, show a little bit of dominance over them, and to kind of take some of the pressure off of the older wolves. Well, and Bolts does that, and to some extent he's fairly effective at it. But the issue is that he's alone. He's the only middle-ranking wolf. Prior to that, we had Luna, and so when we had Luna and Bolts, that would be 2 levels of wolves that would have met these Arctics and played out a little bit of dominance over them. Plus, having a female pack leader with Aiden that would have helped support Aiden. But unfortunately, we know the history of Luna and what happened, and the circumstances that was important to separate her out for the protection of the pups, and that left Aiden with a lot to deal with, a lot of pack issues to deal with. And obviously Luna's engagement with the pups on that first day did create some dynamics. We had some very timid pups, and even now you see Grayson's tail tucked there because Denali's kind of pushing on him. Again, that whole dynamics, if that hadn't happened, would we be looking at a different story? Would we be looking at, Aiden having Luna pair bonded and the Arctics not having so much intimidation about meeting the pack like they did on the first day? So it's hard to say. Again, all those circumstances are things that happened. It's, adaptive management. You adapt as the circumstances change, and that's the one thing about working with live animals is that things change. There's no, manual that says all wolves have to be raised this way. So we watch the confidence level, and here's a circumstance where you can see Aiden's tail down, and his confidence was affected there. Like I say, sometimes the Arctics get pretty excited, they get pretty ramped up, and then next thing you know, that energy feeds onto other energy and can cause some issues. But we also know that Aiden is pretty quick to recover, and this is a circumstance where you're seeing him following Bolts. And so one of the things that we look at is, first of all, who's engaging with who, second of all, who's sleeping near who, what vantage point are they sleeping on, and is there any following behavior. These are all triggers or really cues for us to look at. And so again, we've been putting out a lot of cover hay for a couple of reasons. The cover hay obviously gives them a resting spot. We've had little ice balls on their feet. The other day I pulled an ice ball off of Aiden's foot. He whined, and Axel immediately came over and kind of grabbed at him because Aiden whined, and that means Aiden was viewed as weak, and it's that quick that things can happen. So the hay, every time it stops snowing, we put out hay. That gives them a warm place to help melt those ice balls. It also gives them opportunities to kind of have their own space, and so we're keeping the pump housing available, the den, both dens with cover hay, the front of the exhibit, in front of the white pine, and like I said, we keep putting it out even after it snows and melts. We put it back out, and so it doesn't necessarily, I guess I want to just reiterate that at this time the tension, while we've got some moments of Axel, the tension still seems fairly low. In other words, you could, and having been through pack leader changes before, and having been through the Shadow Malik's testing in the year 2002 of Mackenzie and deposing the pack, I don't feel that kind of tension. And I've already talked a little bit about hormone issues, and they come and go, and certainly it's one of those things where our job is to provide distractions and make sure that everybody feels comfortable, that nobody's vulnerable, that everybody's got resources, and then the distractions are things like pig's ears and beaver feet and deer legs and sometimes whole chickens, sometimes beaver. That's it for YouTube this time. We'll hopefully get them back onto at least the twice a month, if not every week schedule. So thanks for watching, and happy holidays.